freaking terminology that we've been buried in. Should a trans woman who has a penis be able to go into the locker room and change in front of your neck, in front of your daughter?
So okay, so
That's a
first of all,
question. That's a legitimate question.
cool. So I wouldn't want a man with show his penis in front of my son. Like, so I mean,
That's where I'm coming from.
I mean, you brought up this crazy example,
It's
but
not a crazy
okay,
example.
but
That's legitimately the example.
The trans thing has literally nothing to do with it. Like whether or not they're trans or not, I don't want an adult showing their penis to my child.
So there's trans women that have penises.
Okay, so the trans has nothing to do with it.
It does. They have penises.
Well, so okay, wait a minute. So are you telling me?
And this is where
okay, so if a trans woman shows your kid his penis, that's bad. But if a cis guy does it, it's all good.
They're both bad. They're both
okay.
bad.
So then trans has nothing to do with it.
No, I'm just saying.
The scenario in and of itself.
No,
what you're saying is genital exposing your genitals is wrong. Correct,
but we're letting one in and we're letting the other one out.
No,
that's the difference.
No, it doesn't. Your analogy.
My analogy is literally what's been debated.
It's totally irrelevant to the trans thing. It's like saying, what would you be okay with a trans person murdering somebody?
Trans people have.
Well, I don't want anybody to murder anyone.
But trans people have penises.
Not always.
Not all of them.
Yeah.
Some of them.
What about a female transitioning to male? She doesn't have a penis at all. She's never had one. She's trying to transition to male. Would you be okay with her transitioning to him, going into a male locker room and exposing her vagina?
Did she get the surgery to like transition?
She doesn't have a penis yet.
Why does that matter? We're talking about an adult.
You see what I'm saying? Like you're like have to get this like really specific niche view because it's like
not a niche view.
It is because what you're saying is exposing your genitals is wrong. We agree with that.
No. People going to prison and getting pregnant is not a niche view.
We also disagree with people going to prison and getting raped. Like we don't have any problem with either of those statements.
So you would rather someone go to prison and get impregnated, or you would rather?
No, I would not like a person to go to prison and get impregnated. That is end of statement. That has nothing to do with my stance on transgender.
Why not like exclude those people?
I mean, I'm not opposed to people that are rapists being excluded from the public or other people.
I'm just saying, like,
I have no problem.
It's one of those things. It's like we pretend like there's no biological consequences, but then we see them. We see the sports team that's robbed of their equity. We see the people in prison that are impregnated.
You see more often is go ahead.
I'm gonna say, like, because you keep bringing up these scenarios that has nothing to do with trans.
No, they have everything to do with trans. They're extremely related.
That scenario earlier when you talking about a person showing their genitalia to a kid, under what circumstances?
No, not a child. I'm saying in a locker room.
In any situation.
In any circumstances, like when is that okay?
Let me make the statement. Let me make the statement. If I have a locker room full of women, biological, and I just open it up to trans women, and they can go in there and they can undress and they have penises, and women worry about that. And it's not just me. You have to understand, like, there's tons of women that worry about this. And so it's like, are we going to discount the women? The biological
no, we're not going to discount. I have a perfect answer there.
Okay, I'm ready.
So for a locker room, so locker rooms in gyms or whatever, right? They're private. Right, you can have a bet. The business owns that locker room. They can decide who they want and who they don't want in the bathroom. They can set the criteria and that's necessary for going into the bathroom. And then they could tell people if you're not comfortable with these rules, don't go into our bathroom. Problem solved.
Yeah, like, problem solved by excluding other people.
Nobody's being excluded. Like, you get to
the people yourself. Don't want to go there with the penis.
It is my if we're in a scenario where it's my locker room, I get to make the rules. And I say, if you don't like the rules, you don't have to go into my locker room.
You're the government. Hey, if you don't like people,
it's not the government.
We're talking about private facilities.
We're talking about a private facility.
Sure. So a private facility is different than public schools that are funded by the government.
So in a public school is okay. Would you be okay in a public school with a guy? Would you be in a public school with a guy showing his penis to another kid?
No, especially if they're allowed.
Okay, then trans thing is totally irrelevant.
No, it's not.
There's no reason to talk about that.
Oh, it's irrelevant that we would allow trans women into women's lockers.
Okay, what
are you talking about?
No,
that's completely different.
Because your analogy has nothing
to
do
my
with
analogy
trans
is
issues.
no. My analogy is rooted in reality. We are allowing trans women into the locker rooms of women. How is that not connected in any way? Like you're the one that's out of touch with reality.
I think what's happening is and I could be completely wrong here.
What's going on?
We're talking around each other here. I think
I'm not
the bigger point.
We're talking about trans. Yeah.
Let me just get this out, and I could be wrong because I think it could clarify. I think what's happening is you have a problem with the potential of genitals being exposed to other people in a locker. So do we. And if you're just randomly flaunting your genitals, no matter what they are, in another person's face, you're invading their privacy, you're invading their comfort level, and you're making them uncomfortable. I don't disagree with any of that. What I disagree with is when you say there's a private facility that has to do this or can't do that. Now we're, if you're trying to be inclusive, what you're doing is kind of going in reverse there.
No, I'm trying.
Neither of us disagree with exposing genitals to other people in a situation in which doesn't call for it or is unwarranted or makes another person uncomfortable is a good thing.
And this is what's crazy to me. How do you not allow someone to present their genitals when they're in the same locker room?
We just said that we agree with. Did you not just hear him? He just said we both agree that you should not go into a locker room flaunting your genitals.
Doesn't matter what the locker room setup is, by the way.
Yes, yeah. I don't care if you're a cisgender woman or cisgender male or transgender woman or transgender male. That's what I was saying. The trans thing is totally irrelevant to whether or not somebody's flaunting their genitals.
How do they shower? Just shower with a towel on now?
What do you mean? So in the shower, the thing is closed off. Nobody should be looking at anybody.
No, that's not true. I went to showers with 20 men, 50 men when I was in the Marine Corps.
Does that make you comfortable?
Well, I mean, I did that in the Army, and so here's the thing: they could just change that.
But who cares if it's all just a gender? If it's all just a social construct,
does it make you uncomfortable?
The gender is totally irrelevant. So what I'm saying is people should.
It's not irrelevant. It's actually very irrelevant. It's very relevant. Unfortunately.
Okay. Can I ask you a question? Should people go around flaunting their genitals?
It has nothing to do with the conversation.
It is your analogy. It is your analogy. All I did was remove the trans part.
It's about acceptable spaces. It has nothing to do with acceptance.
So it's acceptable for men to flaunt their genitals to other men, but not for trans women to do it.
Correct, because we have differences in biological sex.
So just to be clear, you're agreeing that men can flaunt their genitals to other men in locker rooms as long as they're biologically born males.
Yes, because they're all men.
Okay.
It's not cool. It's not even flaunting. It's just the nature of us showering together.
So me being in my own shower, minding my own business, not trying to view your genitals, not trying to, and you approach me and gather my attention to display your genitals. There's nothing wrong with that, or vice versa. If I were doing it to you, you say that's fine because it's all men. It's all in the locker room.
I would say that there's a gradient, and that's more acceptable than having someone.
It's more acceptable for me to flaunt my genitalia to other biological men than it is for a transgender person to enter in a bathroom and shower.
You all share the same.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, to me, it's like, come on, we have daughters. Do you have daughters? Do you have you think that a daughter should just be?
I think you're appealing to emotion and trying to win a point
I'm
on exposing genitals to other people.
So here's the thing,
it's a practicality, pragmatism, utilitarian.
Here's the thing, I do have an issue. I do have a daughter, and if someone exposed their genitalia, if an adult exposed their genitalia to my daughter, I'm gonna be like, whoa, was it a trans person? No. Oh, okay.
Well, I don't care about that either.
Well,
it's just the fact that
it's totally irrelevant because
the difference is
just like when I used another analogy, just like yours, when we talk about a transgender murdering someone. The trans part has nothing to do with it.
No,
we don't want people murdering people. We don't want people flaunting their genitals.
No, but some people are accepted into the environment, and some people aren't. Like, men are not accepted into women's bathrooms. Transgender people are. That's the difference. Why don't you understand that? That is the difference.
I'm not talking about people being accepted. I'm talking about acceptable behavior. It is not.
I don't care about acceptable behavior.
I mean, that kind of sums up the whole conversation, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. Because
we're talking about
like acceptable behavior is an issue, but I'm saying that someone has access to a group of people and someone doesn't. We all have agreed
but
that
if
men
this
can't
person
have
is
access.
abusing that access, they should definitely be removed. It doesn't
100%.
matter how they gained access to it. And if, by the way, if there is a truly legitimate trans person that is going in the locker and flaunting their genitalia to other people, they should be removed for such a behavior.
It's just the nature
and
of their
it wouldn't
body.
matter if that was a biological male doing that in a biological men's locker room that was specific for biological men. It is the behavior, not the access, that's the issue.
There's a large portion of the population that doesn't want someone with a penis in the locker room with all the females.
Okay, hold on. Let's switch gears to that large.
Regardless of who.
Okay, you said there's a large portion of the population that doesn't want something.
Yes,
all right.
including
so a long
transgender
time. So not too long ago, there was a large portion of the population that didn't want integration. They didn't want black people in the locker room with them. Was that okay?
No.
It's not about comfort.
So here's the thing: whether or not a large portion of the population wants something,
we're talking about something
it's
different.
It's totally irrelevant to the fact whether or not it's right or wrong. So that's what I'm saying.
We're talking about different topics here.
But skin color is irrelevant. I'm pointing out the fallacy in your argument because, like, it is. You're saying something shouldn't be because a large portion of the population.
How are you going to sit there with a daughter and tell me that a man with a penis can go into the freaking locker room of your daughter, and that's not a problem?
You said a man with a penis. Like, is he exposing his penis?
It's a locker room. You literally get dressed.
Okay, but it doesn't mean that. Like, I mean,
no, it does mean that. That's literally what a locker room means.
No,
you go into the locker room and you take a shower. I go in the
locker room to fill up my water bottle sometimes.
I go in the locker room like every day. I don't expose my penis.
That's not the argument we're talking about.
Okay, here's the thing. If you're talking about exposing genitalia, now you're saying walk into the locker room. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Because if someone is exposing the genitalia, we need to correct that. And whether someone is trans is totally irrelevant.
So we start drafting trans women and trans men? No, trans men. Should we start drafting trans men since we don't give a shit about objective reality?
What we could do is tell people not to flaunt their genitalia in the bathroom or in the locker room.
That's one issue.
Bajan Brand makes a good point. How did flaunting genitalia come about? I think that we've
because that's an objective. Because we're talking. No.